Hey, Melissa here. I am at Dragon Man's. Normally I make this video in our firearm store. However, today we are open and it has been very busy up front. So I am making this video in the military museum that we give tours in. If you notice the background behind me, a little bit different. And we have one of the largest privately owned military museums in the country. So come on out if you have not seen it yet. We give tours Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 10 a.m. It's a 2-hour guided tour. It's open April through November. And if you don't know about Dragon Man's, we also have firearm store and shooting ranges, plus dirt bike tracks, paintball parks, and we rebuild Harley motorcycles, plus rent out full auto firearms. We do events, and we also do concealed carry classes as well. So come on out, come see us. We're 8 miles east of Colorado Springs. I wanted to give you guys an update on a lot of these Colorado bills a lot sooner. However, there was the excise tax bill testimony yesterday, and then the gun store permit requirements the day before. And I just wanted to see what happened with those before I gave this update so that I wasn't making multiple ones. There is good news and bad news. The good news is that we thought the semi-automatic firearm ban bill would be on the schedule yesterday and today. So this is the bill that would essentially ban like 80% of the firearms sold in Colorado. Luckily, it has not been on the schedule, which makes us think that they don't think that it has the likelihood of passing. They are really only putting up bills right now that I believe they feel there's a good chance of them passing. So why waste any time when initially in the beginning of the legislative session, there was over 700 bills that needed to be read and go through. So there's still a lot of bills that they have to get through. They are working nights, like early mornings, weekends to get through these bills and pass. And there's so many other, things going on there with other topics. So they are working on those bills as well. And if this firearms bill does not get on the schedule tomorrow, then the likelihood of it getting on, I believe, Tuesday. This session ends Wednesday, May 8th. So I think it's safe to say that it will not pass this year, but it's not to say that it won't be up again next year. I definitely think it will be if we don't get to the polls this election and vote out some of these representatives who are in favor of banning 80% of the firearms sold. Very unfair to the law-abiding residents of Colorado. And as you might know already, the sponsors of that bill is Tim Hernandez, who filled a vacancy spot, did not get elected into his spot. Elizabeth Epps of Denver. Tim is of Denver too. And then Julie Gonzalez, the senator. She is a Denver representative as well. Julie actually put in another bill that she's sponsoring. Same with Tim. He's a co-sponsor of the Immigrant Identification Document Issuance Bill. This one has made it very far and essentially is a bill that is only going to require immigrants who come here, whether it's legal or illegal, to just show that they had a driver's license and or a voter in the country that they came from. That's the only two things that they need to prove in order to get a driver's license and potentially vote. Interesting stuff, guys. So Julie Gonzalez is the main Senate sponsor of that bill, along with Elizabeth Velasco of Eagle, Pitkin, and Garfield County, and Jeff Bridges sponsored that bill, who also sponsored the state permitting for gun shops bill, and he's in Denver and Jefferson County. So luckily, the only bill that is actually passed has been so far the merchant code bill. This is essentially going to identify firearm stores under the merchant code when you use your credit card as a firearm processor category. Luckily here at Dragon Man's, we have so many things going on that we will most likely be exempt from that. Same with Shields, Cabela's, and so forth. However, we are more than likely going to still put an ATM into our store in case you feel uncomfortable using your credit card. That one was signed into law. The other ones that will more than likely be signed into law are the concealed carry permits training and the sensitive spaces bill, and more than likely the safe storage in cars. Merchant code bill was sponsored by Representative Mabry of Jefferson and Denver County. Mabry has voted in favor of like every gun bill. So if he is your representative, make sure you get to the polls this election. Tom Sullivan was also a sponsor of the merchant code bill, who would have been on the committee for the assault weapons ban bill if it went to the committee. And he was going to be the flip vote. Very hard to say how he would have actually voted or how he might actually vote. It's really hearsay at this point, regardless of what you might hear, rumored and so forth. I've heard a lot of rumors. So the concealed carry permits was sponsored by Monica Duran. She also sponsored the excise tax bill. She is in Arapahoe and Douglas County. And then also Senator Mullica, who we thought would be the flip vote on the excise tax bill, but he voted in favor of it. He is in Adams County. And then same with Mark Snyder here in El Paso County. He has been voting in favor of a lot of these gun bills as well. The concealed carry permits bill, it will require classroom and range time plus a test now to get your concealed carry permit. It will require you to renew and take a new class every 2 years to keep your permit active. I don't think that anyone needs to take another class every 2 years, like maybe every 5 would have been fine, but it was a little excessive for that 2-year mark. The sensitive spaces bill will essentially ban, even with a concealed carry permit, carry of firearms on college campuses, polling places, and government buildings. The sponsors of that bill were Chris Kolker of Arapahoe and Jefferson County. He has again been voting in favor of a lot of these bills. He was on the finance committee for the excise tax bill and I believe the gun permitting bill, and he voted in favor of that. Mandy Lindsay of Arapahoe County was also a sponsor of the sensitive spaces bill. Same with Kyle Brown, who is in Boulder and Broomfield County. All right, the liability insurance for gun owners, essentially saying and requiring all gun owners to have liability insurance. If this passed, we would be the only state in the country to actually require gun owners to have liability insurance. This actually made it past the House and the Senate committee, and it's would have been on its second reading. However, it's been being laid over daily. So if it keeps getting laid over, then they think that they may not have the votes for it, and essentially once the legislative session ends, it will essentially die. But they could still listen to it tomorrow, go through the third reading on Tuesday or Wednesday, and go to the governor's desk. So we'll see how that goes. The safe storage in cars is having a conference committee on it, and then it'll essentially go to, I believe it's third reading. And then the governor's desk, I kind of see this one passing through, essentially saying that you need to have your gun in a safe storage locked container if you leave it in your car. I'm not really against that bill. However, any gun bill, in my opinion, is a slippery slope. All right, the excise tax bill. Testified on this yesterday in the Finance Committee, and it passed through the House, and that was the initial introduction to the Senate, and it did pass on a party line vote of 4-3. So it will now go to appropriations because it did get amended down now from 11% to 9% to now 6.2%. This one will go to the actual ballot of the voters, which is, you might think it's great, but I'm kind of losing faith in some of our voters, so I really don't know how that will go, and I hope that it would have just died in committee yesterday. And so many people, there was essentially like 4-1 for people who testified in opposition, for people who voted in favor. We're definitely not against financing victims of domestic violence, but that's essentially where they want the money to go, towards the resources for victims of domestic violence. I think it should come from the perpetrators, like from maybe their court fines, and maybe make them pay more fines. And that's actually how they were financing this years ago. So I don't know why they're not going back to that. But they now somehow want the gun owners to pay for domestic violent resources. Not against helping people of domestic violence, but why it should come from gun owners, I don't quite correlate that. It will essentially make here at Dragonman's go from 5.13% to now 11.3%. And then for like Sheila's, Cabela's, people in the city, we'll make it about 15% tax rate on your firearms ammo and firearms accessories if this passes. So it's going to go out to the second and third reading, be heavily debated on. And if you didn't know it, you could actually go to a link, YouTube, and on the schedule, you can listen to the audio and actually hear them debate. If you didn't know that, here in Colorado, it's pretty interesting to listen to that. That one, the excise tax bill, was sponsored by Monica Duran, again, of Jefferson County. Chris Hansen, again, who sponsored the liability insurance bill. So Chris Hansen, he is in Denver County. So, and then Janet Buckner of Arapahoe County. So a lot of these representatives that are sponsoring these gun bills are all around Denver for the most part, or, around the Boulder area as well. So the last one's going to be state permitting for gun shops. So essentially now, if you're an FFL, you have to now get a state permit. And now we will be regulated by the Department of Revenue and the ATF, and require a whole bunch of stuff. And again, the more fees coming from God knows where to fund this entirely new department, and the salaries of the people working that department. The amount of money that they'll accumulate from just billing the FFLs will, in my opinion, not be enough to actually fund the department. So where the rest of that money will come from, I'm not sure. You would think like maybe the excise tax bill, but that's going somewhere else. Very interesting stuff. That one was essentially sponsored by Jeff Bridges, who sponsored the Immigrant Identification Document Issuance Bill, and Emily Sirota. So she is a House representative in the Arapahoe and Denver area. That one will now go to its second and third reading in the Senate. And then if it passes those, then it will go off to the governor's desk. How it works, if it does go to the governor's desk and he doesn't immediately sign it, it just sits there and he doesn't veto it. If a bill sits there that was put on essentially his desk, and I'm just using that as a loose term, essentially getting to go over to the governor to sign, if it was approved 10 days or more left in the legislative session, if it sits on his desk for 10 days, it will automatically go in, get signed into law. If it passed through the Senate and the House with less than 10 days left in the legislative session, then it has to sit there for 30 days to then get signed into law. So these bills will have to sit there for 30 days. If they get passed, like in the next 2 days before, it will just automatically be signed into law unless he just signs it. And in those 30 days, he could still veto it. So if these do make it to that point, you might want to then email Governor Polis and hope for the best. I'm not entirely sure what will happen, but doesn't hurt to email, doesn't hurt to try. And I feel like a lot of these representatives probably want us to lose momentum and give up at this point, but I haven't. I'm still testifying on every bill that I can. And I'm still encouraging people to email your local senator, email your local representative. I'm going to put a link in this video to where if you live in Colorado, you can check to find who is your House district, who is your district senator, and make sure you get to the polls, and you can also then go onto some of these bills and go down to the history, and then you can hit voting history and actually see how they voted on certain bills. So very interesting stuff, and you can even go to the bills and then view the votes. All right, hopefully that wasn't too much in one short video. After the legislative session is over, I will then let you guys know what passed, what will more than likely be passed, and when it goes into effect, and keep you guys updated. So thanks for watching. Again, get down to Dragon Man's if you'd like to come see us. We're open Tuesday through Sunday, 9:30 to 4. Take care.